Welcome, everybody. It's episode 11 of the Constant Geekery podcast and our last podcast, Pete, for 2020.
Well, stick me in the gooseberry bush and call me Jam. Actually, I did have some gooseberry jam, homemade gooseberry jam, given to me the other day by a very kind lady because I helped her out with her technology.
Lovely.
And it was, I've never had gooseberry jam before, but it was like marmalade, but with fruit instead of, well, I suppose marmalade
is usually fruit.
Yeah, but instead of oranges, which I think is normally what marmalade's made from, it was gooseberries. It was very pleasant on toast with a bit of butter.
Lovely. When I was growing up, we had a gooseberry bush in our garden, and we used to indeed enjoy the gooseberries. But once a year, we could collect just enough gooseberries to have a gooseberry crumble. And that was a fine thing to enjoy. But that has got absolutely nothing to do with tech. So we need to...
It was vaguely related because the gooseberry jam was as a result of helping someone with their tech.
Well, there you go. So our top tip is help people with their tech, and you may indeed get lovely food products in return.
Indeed.
Good. So since it's our last podcast of 2020, because we usually wind down at the end of the year. We close the business for a bit and we take a break, and I don't see why the video stuff should be any different. We've got a few videos queued up to launch over the holiday period, so don't worry about that. But we'll certainly we'll be back anyway with more podcasting in the new year.
Yeah, I'm sure probably everyone's sick of the sight or sound of us, or both.
I imagine so.
I am.
Oh, well, thanks.
I speak for myself. Obviously, you're lovely.
Thank you. Thanks, Pete. I would reciprocate, but...
don't do it.
An exciting year then for tech.
Yeah,
2020.
Definitely.
So I just picked out a couple of highlights really from actually more recent months, but nVidia really upped the ante with graphics horsepower with their new line of cards. It was
incredible. Yeah, very, very exciting times.
But they've kind of hit the news again recently. Obviously, the launch didn't go superbly well thanks to all the price sculpting. Come back to that. But this week, they've really upset the tech reviewer community. I don't know if you've...
No, I've deliberately, obviously preparing for this, I thought, lay it on me and I can give a genuine reaction in the podcast to what's been going on here, because I've been very focused on Apple Silicon over the last few weeks, as you can imagine.
Yeah, so it's nice to take a break from that, of course. So there's a channel, an Australian channel called Hardware Unboxed. I mean, they're a pretty big channel, hundreds of thousands of subscribers. So obviously they're getting GPUs sent to them by nVidia. But nVidia sent this email to the channel basically saying you're not going to get any more of our Founders Edition cards because you're not showing people the stuff that we want you to show them.
Okay.
And they're banging on about ray tracing and how massively important it is, which truth is it's just not. Most gamers are not really that fussed about ray tracing. Yes, it makes things look slightly better, but it takes a considerable amount more horsepower to do it. So most people aren't using it. There's not a massive quantity of games still supporting ray tracing.
Okay.
And the basic gist of it is quite a bullying email. It basically says, we and all the gamers in the world and everybody else don't agree with what you're saying. You're not presenting the correct viewpoint, therefore we're not going to send you any cards anymore.
So this is nVidia saying that to the channel Hardware Unboxed.
Yeah.
So they're speaking for all gamers.
Supposedly.
In their email.
Yeah, which is a gross liberty.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is their head of PR that sent this. I mean, what a dumb move, because it's been picked up by channels like Linus Tech Tips, Linus had a proper good rant on the WAN show about it, which is worth listening to. And Jay's 2 cents, he's chimed in as well, and others. Nobody's particularly happy about this. And I think nVidia are kind of misrepresenting stuff as well. They're saying that, gamers don't get free graphics cards like you do, like making out that they're just, out of the goodness of their heart, they're giving him a free graphics card, which is utter nonsense. No. Yeah, okay, he gets the graphics card without charge, but he has to do a whole bunch of stuff, for nVidia, for that card.
Yeah, I think this is a really important point because obviously, we've invested in reviewing technology recently, and we've purchased our own hardware to review because we're simply not big enough to be given stuff, which is fine. But actually purchasing the hardware is really the tip of the iceberg. It's the time and the energy that goes into doing a proper review, which is where the value is. So getting an nVidia graphics card or whatever it is nothing. It's the time, and that's why nVidia send them, and that's why other companies send them, is because they know that they're going to get exposure for it. Otherwise, like you say, they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart.
No, in fact, it's a pretty cheap marketing exercise. You know, if they send a free RTX 3090 to Jay's 2 cents, for example, I mean, what's he got? 2 point something million subscribers?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What's the cost of a 3090 to them? A few $100s to get exposure of that magnitude.
It's a no-brainer. It's why YouTube review channels are so popular. It's why Instagram influencers are so popular. It's the way things are now, and we want that as consumers, because we want people to be able to say this is what we think of this particular set of goodies.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also, you know, let's not forget as well that there's a huge amount of work at nVidia or AMD or whoever's sending out this tech. You know, they've got to have staff to look after the reviewers and to liaise with them. They've got to prepare materials, so it's more than the cost of just the hardware. We accept that, but this whole notion of, you know, we're giving you free stuff, therefore you should say what we want you to say. Well, that's not how reviews work, and nVidia should know better. So they've upset a whole bunch of people.
What a bunch of wallies.
It's just one thing after another with them, honestly.
They do seem to have scored some own goals in the PR circuit this year, don't they?
They do, yeah. And of course, their competition, AMD, good year of tech for AMD. They obviously have been involved in the launch of the new consoles. They've brought out some genuine Intel-beating CPUs, properly exciting. Surprised us with the new GPUs and the level of performance.
Yeah, hugely.
Although it seems that they may have waxed lyrical about the 6900 XT.
Not quite as good as expectations were led to believe.
Well, they sort of had it. They kind of were showing it trading blows with the 3090, and it doesn't really.
No.
It's trading blows with the 3080.
Which is still pretty good.
Well, it costs $500 less than the 3090, so why would you expect any different? I mean, I think for the price it's absolutely fine, but it's not, you know, it's not quite as good. They're not quite there yet, but I'm pretty sure they'll get there, particularly if nVidia keep scoring own goals like they do.
Their star is definitely rising, I would say.
Yeah,
particularly with, as you mentioned, what they're doing with the games consoles as well. It makes it easier for games developers to work across different platforms because they're working with those same architectures. It makes it easier.
Yeah, definitely does. So we've got obviously the new Xbox, and we've got the new PlayStation. So that's exciting for many people for tech.
Don't forget as well, Nintendo brought out a new Game & Watch.
They did. Yeah. That's sold well. Obviously, you can't get any of this stuff because of all the price scalpers and the lack of availability, and a lot of people are calling it a paper launch. And for all of the mockery directed at nVidia, it seems AMD did even worse.
Had the same problems, didn't they?
Yeah, but in some cases they're sending massive stores just a tiny number of cards and CPUs. I mean, everything's out of stock everywhere. So
I'd be interested to know how many of our listeners or viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube, that's youtube.com/Constant Geekery, how many of you have tried to get hardware of any of this that we're describing recently and had these experiences that we're seeing repeated? Be interesting to see. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah. I think the biggest news in computer tech for 2020, well, it's got to be Apple Silicon.
I was going to say the Game & Watch, but yeah, close second would be Apple Silicon.
And definitely not the Apple Airpods Max. So let's delve into this. So if Apple quietly launched these, obviously they're doing the rounds on YouTube, so I'm sure you're aware of it already. But the Airpods Max, we thought they were going to be called AirPods Studio. Well, everybody thought that, but
yeah.
They use that Studio name with their Beats line of headphones. So I suspect that's why they've stuck with this AirPods Max.
Not the best name.
Not
Just
really.
Before we go any further, not the best name. It reminds me of, of things I won't mention on the podcast. At best, it reminds me of Nike Air Max, very popular trainer.
Is that the same as the Nike Air Max?
Might well be. It depends where you come from in the country. Nike is how we used to say it from my part of the world. But yes, I know it's Nike. Get off my back with your monkey. Yeah. Apple AirPods Max. And whenever you put Max on something, it just, I don't know, apart from Pepsi.
It's like back in the 80s when everything was turbo.
Yeah.
You know, you get a pair of sunglasses and it'd have turbo written on them.
That's right. And then in the 90s, everything was 2000. If it had 2000 at the end of it with the upcoming millennium, that made it better somehow. And those companies now that are like, Quantair 2000 seem very dated.
Me too. Interesting that Apple didn't go with the Pro moniker, which they like to use for non-Pro products. But perhaps they're reserving that for some new, even more expensive AirPods in the future.
Well, what sort of studio-priced AirPods? You mean?
That kind of thing, yeah.
Because how much are these coming in at, these AirPod Max?
So 550 of your United States dollars, or indeed, if you're of a UK persuasion, it will be 550 imperial credits of the realm, Pete.
Ooh. So, as we say in this realm often, that is cheap at half the price. Not.
Well, it would be cheap at half the price. I don't understand that expression. It's obviously going to be cheap if it's half the price.
No. Cheap at half the price. Oh, do you know what? I'm going to go into this later with you because no one here wants to know what that expression is. It's one of those ones that's often misunderstood. But £550 or dollars, that is... Well, how much? Because you got some Sony WH-1000s.
We'll come back to those.
Okay,
if I may.
All right, yeah, okay. But that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. In the world of audiophile headphones, would be considered entry level, or possibly not even entry level. You can spend a lot of money on very expensive headphones, and just like everything in life, it's the law of diminishing returns. You pay a huge amount to get that extra couple of % of quality. Now, I haven't got a pair of AirPod Max.
Have Apple not sent us our free samples yet?
They've not sent us any samples, but they do appear to have sent samples to others.
Yeah.
So people who have reviewed them are saying that the quality is very good. I mean, I'd be disappointed if it was anything other than very good at that kind of price point. They are wireless headphones, and they support Bluetooth 5, but Apple, typically for Apple, don't provide any information on the bit rates or the codecs that these headphones support. I wasn't able to find any in my research. If anybody knows the answer to that, please leave a comment on the YouTube channel. That'd be great. To my knowledge, Apple has only ever supported 256 kilobits. The Apple codec, AAC, is 256 kilobits, and it's the same whether that's wired or wireless.
I think it may go up to 320 now.
Okay.
But that's still far short of what you would want from an audiophile.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of arguments about high-res music and whether or not it's actually, just snake oil and all the rest of it. I don't want to get into that. I think it all depends on the type of music you're listening to. You can definitely tell the difference, for example, with orchestral music. If you've got a lot of stuff going on and you listen to it on high-res, because I've got some high-res FLAC files that I listen to on my music player, and there is a noticeable difference.
Does it also, do you think, depend on the listener and how attuned they are?
I think a lot of people wouldn't notice until they heard the difference. I don't want to go too far down this road. I can remember going to an AV show a long time ago. I'm talking more than 20 years ago, and they had some speakers there that were being demoed, which were costing something like £10,000 each.
Wow!
And I've never heard anything like it. But until you hear it, you just,
That does remind me of a story. I don't know if we've got time for a quick story on wine.
Go on.
Yeah. So early on in my career, I was taken away by my boss and a few others I worked with to some kind of exhibition event in the north of England. It was very exciting for me. It's the first time, been sort of out on what we call a jolly in the UK, a bit of fun. And we were all sat having a meal, and the boss said, "Well, what would you like?" and brought the wine list out. And me, as a complete green. I was, early 20s. I spotted a wine that I knew the name of and actually knew that I quite liked the taste of it. But in the big scheme of things, it was nothing. But I said, "Oh, shall we go for that?" to my mate next to me, and he was going, didn't know quite what to say. And the boss said, "Oh, well, I'm going to have this. Who would like that?" So the long and short of it is, we ended up with a couple of bottles of this wine that the boss had chosen, which was rather expensive. And me saying, "Oh no, this Californian white's beautiful. We're going to have that instead." And I then got a sample of the expensive wine, and the difference. I didn't like the wine I then had chosen, but up until then I knew no better. So it's the same thing. Once you try something nicer, it's hard to go back.
It is, and I got to say, high-res audio, high-fidelity audio is a slippery slope, folks. And you start off with I'll just get some better speakers, or I'll just get this and that, and then you end up with someone I know who'd spent £1,000 on a kettle lead, a power cable. I kid you not, £1,000 on a power cable.
Are winding me up.
No, I'm not.
On a kettle lead.
Yeah, absolutely serious, 100% serious.
Power lead.
Yeah, £1,000. That's the slippery slope. Go searching after those tiny little percentages. Anyway, Apple AirPods Max are not in that game. They are probably very good sounding headphones that most consumers would be completely delighted with the audio quality. However, to enjoy any headphones at their full potential, you need a wired connection.
Mm-hmm. So you use the cable that comes with them then, I guess, if you want that.
Well, it doesn't so much come with them as exist as a separate entity that you must purchase.
Oh, okay. I had a horrible suspicion for a moment that you were going to say, actually, no, they're wireless only. But it does come with an optional extra cable, doesn't it?
Yeah, you have to get a lightning to 3.5mm cable, which I think is $30, $35 or something.
Of course you do, yeah.
So that's not included. Of course, with any expensive headphones, you need a case to put them in, don't you?
What to protect them and such like.
So for those who are watching on the YouTube channel, and again, that's youtube.com/constantgeekery, I'm about to put the image of the headphones in their case on our TV screen here. But if you are listening to us via a podcast, why not open a web browser, head over to Apple's site. If you go to the music section and then the AirPods Max, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see the same picture. So let me just bring this one up. And we look at this delightful image, Pete. Now,
it never fails. I've seen this already. This isn't my first time seeing it, although we probably wouldn't get through the podcast if it had been.
I've got to say, if you're listening and you're not able to go and have a look at the picture, then we need to try and describe this for the viewers, Pete. So if you imagine the headband of the headphones as being the handle of a handbag or purse,
Yeah, it does have something of the Hermes handbag about it, or purse, yeah.
So you basically got this kind of, I guess it's faux leather sleeve with the headphones slide into, with then this magnetic flap over the top. The slight issue, I would say, is that each ear cup goes into sort of a separate compartment, and the compartments are therefore sort of split down the middle.
A separate cup.
A separate cup. Yeah, there's a kind of like a cleft in the middle. I don't know how else to describe it. Pete, mental imagery. Are you getting some mental imagery from these headphones?
Yeah, it does look like a bra, doesn't it? A halter neck bra. Some kind of sci-fi halter neck bra, or a builder's bum. In actual fact, again, I love dropping in the odd sci-fi reference to the channel because I am a bit of a sci-fi geek. It reminds me of C-3PO's builder's bum. That's what it looks like. Especially if they were gold, that would be brilliant. But yeah, it's hilarious.
It does certainly have that look about it. But what I find interesting is that the case is open at the top, so it's not protecting the top of the ear cups. And then for some reason, they've cut slits in the bottom as well. The other thing I've got to tell you about this case, right? Okay, so these headphones don't fold up. So in order to transport them, that is the way you've got to transport them. So you could think to yourself, well, I'm not going to bother with the case because it looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I'm
just
and I'm
go-
not going to carry around my headphones like a purse.
just keep them on my neck. Or
Just
something.
keep them on your neck. Yeah. The thing is, the only way to switch these headphones off, as far as I've heard, is the magnetic flap on the case there. So you've got to put them back in the case to switch them off, or you have to leave them for a couple of hours and then they'll sort of go into a low power state.
Yeah, as in, yeah. Well, Apple are very concerned about energy conservation, aren't they? So.
I'm absolutely mystified at this. You know, this is a company that has bought us some of the very best industrial design over the years. And yes, I think it's fair to say there's been a few misfires, but this one is right at the top of the list as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe you guys like the kind of cleavage headphone case look. It's not for me.
So hit or miss for you. Oh, I have to ask. I do have to ask because it's Apple. Does the case come with the headphones?
Yes, it does.
Oh, okay. So you don't have to pay for that extra.
No.
Good.
They do have a really nice design feature, actually. Although I think the actual cans themselves are a little bit kind of. Let's have a look. I mean, some people are going to like it. Some people won't. It's not to everyone's taste. They've got quite a vintage look about them. But these cups that you see here, if you're watching or looking at the website, the cups are magnetic, and you can remove them and replace them with other cups.
Oh, okay. That's good. That's good.
So you could mix and match the colours.
Oh, I like that.
So to get some individuality and style.
Get your look.
So you go on the Apple website. Obviously, you buy your AirPods. You choose what colour Airpods Max you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you get the same colour cups. So if you want to change the colour, you just have to get some other ones.
Oh, okay. Those come in the box, do they?
No. That's just another $70.
What?
So you get a pair of cups with it, just to be clear, but you can't customise the colour. So Apple have made this sort of set of headphones with the ability to be customised, but then they don't give you the option to choose what colour cups you want. So you have to go and buy them, and they're $70 to buy.
Wow.
So I feel like that's a missed opportunity, because when you buy your Apple Watch, you can choose the colour of your watch and you can choose your strap. Why don't they do the same thing for the AirPods Max?
Who knows?
Maybe it's got something to do with lots of $70 purchases. I don't know. Just speculating.
Along with your cable.
So, our initial thoughts, we haven't tested them, so we're not making any comment on the sound quality, and I've got no doubt for that kind of price, they'll be good. The AirPods Pro are really good. I mean, they're not as good as the Sony equivalents, according to What Hi-Fi. I've not personally tried both. I do have the Sony equivalents, and I can say they're absolutely fantastic. So I've got the in-ear WF Sonys, and I just wanted to mention the Sony WH-1000 XM4. So this is it's sort of become the industry leader, if you like, for wireless headphones. And the reason why is because the noise cancelling is just fantastic. The audio is fantastic. They are the most comfortable headphones I've ever worn.
Would you rate the comfort as fantastic?
I would say it's fantastic.
Good.
I'm blessed with being larger of the ear, thanks to my family genetics. I used to get called the FA Cup at school. People used to ask me, actually, if I could pick up satellite TV on those things. But
Did you ever get the old Jodrell Bank comment, Otto?
No.
Okay, sort of like satellite tracking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for adding to my misery there, Pete.
My pleasure.
So I struggle with over-the-ear headphones. These ones that we're wearing for the podcast are fairly basic headphones. I think these are about £80 or something like that, and I don't find them particularly comfortable for
extended periods of time.
No, my ears are already hot, and I don't like that. Whereas I can wear the Sonys all day with few issues. They are really comfortable. They fold up. You get a nice hard case with them, which comes with all the cables that you might conceivably need, including an airline adapter.
Oh,
so you can plug into your airline seat as well.
For those days when we used to go in planes.
Yeah, remember those?
Yeah, vaguely.
Now you can buy the WH-1000 XM4 for £329 on Amazon. Or you can buy the previous version, the XM3s. I've found those for £219. The ones I've got are the XM3s. So
Okay.
you're talking less than half the price. So if what you care about is really good quality wireless audio and the ability to plug a wire in and enjoy, with great noise cancelling and portability in a nice case, for less than half the price of the Apple AirPods Max, you can have the Sonys. So I'm not saying that because we're being sponsored by Sony or anything like that. What I'm saying is AirPods Max have got to go some way to be better than that.
Yeah.
And, for the price difference, they need to be quite a lot better.
Yeah, I see that. But you just know that Apple will sell them by the bucket load.
They will. I think they're sold out in a lot of places. And you also know that you're going to, if you're in a city or whatever, you're just going to see loads of people walking around with these things, because it's a fashion statement as well, isn't it? I can afford to spend $550 on headphones. People who would never have considered spending $550 on,
Headphones before.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will because of what it is.
Yeah.
I see a good parody video there coming up, but maybe not for this channel.
Perhaps not. Anyway, I'll put some links to the Amazon links to Sony headphones in the description. And let's think about next year now, Pete. We mentioned Apple Silicon earlier. I'm sure lots of people are getting a little bit fed up with Apple Silicon content. So what I wanted to do is just talk about the rumours for 2021 and just share our thoughts on that, really.
Yeah, let's do that because we've stayed away from that largely up until now, haven't we?
Yeah. Waiting to see the rumours develop, really. So the first rumour we heard was the M1X.
Or the mix, as I like to call it.
Okay. And what are the rumours saying?
4 additional high-performance cores.
Yeah. So at the moment, the M1 is 4 efficiency cores and 4 high-performance cores.
So they're talking about adding another 4 for the M1X.
Yeah.
And that in itself is pretty astonishing.
Well, you think about we've tried to give sensible coverage of the M1 on the channel and try and avoid the hype. And because there's been so much hype, it's actually kind of pushed us a little bit further towards, calm down, guys.
De-hyping.
Yeah, which I feel a bit aggrieved about because we haven't, I felt like we needed to balance what people are hearing. So don't misunderstand us at all. The M1 is just
stonking.
Oh, it's so amazing.
It's really good.
That's a word from the 90s right there.
Yeah, well, only 90s kids will understand this. I wasn't a 90s kid, but there we go.
4 additional performance cores. Obviously, you don't need additional efficiency cores. 4 is enough. But adding 4 additional performance cores, what will that actually do to performance?
Well, it could potentially double, I believe, some of the benchmarks that we've been seeing.
It could do. I think the software has to be optimized for it. So I don't know whether you're aware of this, but for the longest time, of course, processors were quad core. We sort of went dual core, then it was quad core, and for quite a long time it stayed at quad core. So a lot of software developers, particularly game developers, optimize their games for
quad
core processors, and putting additional processors in doesn't really make a lot of difference. So if the software is optimized for it, there is the potential to vastly increase performance. I'm not convinced we'd see double across the board. It might be possible to do that. Typically, that doesn't happen. The other obstacle that you have with multi-core processors is that you're putting a lot onto the silicon.
Yeah.
So the heat generation is higher. So what you typically find is that the cores don't ramp up
to their maximum potential.
Exactly. So if you're using single core, you'll get the full frequency. Now, depending on the design of the processors, and I did a bit of a breakdown with this for the Mac Pro, looking at the different Xeons, and what you'll find is that the different models actually can sustain higher frequencies across more of the cores.
Okay.
Which makes, for example, when you compare the 8-core and the 12-core for the old 2013 Mac Pro, what you find is it's actually only at the very end of the scale. If you really need those sort of 11 cores or more, that's where you see the benefit. So everywhere else,
you don't.
You
So
don't.
it's that marginal gains thing we were
Yeah.
talking about ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that may impact it. I mean, the actual wafer itself is not very big.
Mm.
You know, you look at the size of the M1 chip compared to, say, an AMD Threadripper, which is enormous. You know, so I suspect they'll increase the die size.
Mm. And you've got to think, Apple will be able to take into account the fact that to really wring the performance out of these additional cores, the software does need to take advantage of that.
Mm. Yeah, completely agree. So M1X, I would suggest that this will probably feature in more of the enthusiast grade machines, because there's talk that Apple are testing CPUs with up to 16 performance cores. So we've just been talking about 8 performance cores. Now we're talking about 16 performance cores plus 4 efficiency cores, a 20-core processor. And that potentially, apparently, could come as early as the end of next year.
Wow, that is staggering.
I'm sort of, you're thinking 3 to maybe 3 times the performance of the existing M1. Would that probably be a reasonable speculation if you could do that? Well, that gets you to the level of very high performance. I mean, that's beyond the kind of performance of the latest AMD 5950. You are getting up into the kind of enthusiast or professional grade Xeon chips and AMD Threadripper. It's starting to border on that territory.
So do you think if something like that came along, that might be, because obviously up until the announcement of Apple Silicon, you were looking at a 2019 Mac Pro, weren't you?
Yeah.
So do you think the 16 performance core models may be where you'd place your bets?
Possibly, except for the fact that there's also talk, more rumours again,
I know what you're going to say.
of 32 cores, Pete.
32 cores. 32 Apple cores.
Mm. See what you did
32.
there.
Yeah, thank you. Been waiting to do that.
32 cores, and that's 2022, but some people are saying could even appear in 2021.
Mm.
So I just want to say, we thought about Apple's 2-year transition and we thought that was optimistic. I'm not so convinced anymore.
They're really putting their foot to the floor, aren't they?
Yeah, and 16 performance cores, 32 cores, everything depends on the price.
Mm.
Of course, at the moment, the M1 is performing as well as computers that cost 2.5, 3 times the price. Is that going to happen? Is that even going to be a wider margin? I mean, a 32 core M1 would be definitely on the kind of, we've got to be getting up to the levels of that 28 core Xeon, which is the current top processor in
the Mac Pro.
In the Mac Pro.
Yeah. It is one of those things, isn't it, where just coming back to that transition period, now that we've seen just how good the M1 really actually is, actually using it day to day, it has blown, for a lot of things, Intel chips out the water. Mm-hmm. Now, we've obviously established that's not always the case, and these new AMDs can beat it in many ways, for now. But it does make you stop and think, well, Apple knew what they had on their hands and think, well, we can't drag this out too long because the gulf between Intel Macs and Apple Silicon Macs is so vast that people won't buy the Intel ones. I wouldn't. So maybe that's why their plan has always been to, roll it out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think so. So here's I'm going to just put my neck on the block and make a prediction, but I would say the 4-port 13-inch MacBook Pro and the better, the Intel Mac Mini, those will get replaced.
Yep.
The iMacs, people are talking about that. I think they'll stop the iMac Pro and there'll be 2 new iMacs. Lots of talk of that happening. So I think we'll see all of that next year. And the 16-inch moving over possibly more towards the end of the year.
Yep.
Or later in the year with some of these really big CPUs. Then there's talk of a half-size Mac Pro sharing the same design in 2022.
So an actual cheese grater.
Yeah, it could be. I'd love to see it,
That
though,
would be
because
so cute.
Most people don't need that enormous case. I don't need the enormous case. So half-sized one, said half price. Well, if it was half price,
That would
that'd
be
be
good
great
as
as well. But half-size Mac Pro, lots of people call in for that. And to be honest, it's giving me a lot of pause for thought because I'm in that position at the moment of changing the machine or thinking about changing my machine. Shall I make do with the M1 and step up? We'll see. Thinking about it.
Stay tuned in 2021 for Dave's continued decision / indecision.
Yes. Thing is with the M1, when you're doing stuff that it's optimized for, it's very good. But we showed with our video testing last week, and at the end of the day, your mileage will vary with video testing. You get different results from all the time. But what we did see fairly consistently is that the iMac with the 8-core i9 processor and the Vega 48 graphics was better overall. I think the M1 did beat it in, or did it? Not sure it did.
No,
We're going to test it again anyway. I just, in case anyone's interested, I'm going to test all of the Blackmagic RAW codecs. So I'm going to shoot the same scene for all of the different codecs, and I'm going to run it on the M1 Mini and the iMac, just to see. And I'm hoping that Blackmagic will release a new version of Resolve as well, so we can kind of test that at the same time. Because they have been doing sort of weekly updates.
Yes, I noticed that, and putting them on different places on their website as well.
Yes. So that's pretty exciting. But the point there that I was trying to make is that the Intel iMac is still a worthy contender, to say the least. From our testing, it was.
Yeah, for now, absolutely.
Change this up though. Put that additional power in, and the gap starts to close a bit more. But the biggest deficiency is not CPU, is it?
It's RAM.
RAM. Yeah, only 16 gigs isn't enough. And also the GPU isn't fast enough.
No.
So let's talk about the GPU rumours.
Well, rumours are they're testing 16 and 32 core GPUs.
Now that is going to be impressive.
I am baited.
Well, if you think about it at the moment, so currently it's an 8-core GPU.
Well, 7 in the entry-level MacBook Air.
Of course, yeah. I think you can pretty much double the performance expectation when you're adding GPU cores, because the GPU itself is optimized and the Metal framework should be optimized to take care of that rather than the software. Could be wrong, but
yeah, no, I think you're right. Actually, I misspoke earlier when I was talking about double performance. We were, of course, talking about CPU cores, and it was the GPUs that I had in mind. So yeah, I think I agree with you. I think that's where we'll see it.
So if you take what they're currently doing and double it, where does that take you? Well, in truth, not a million miles away from the Vega 48 we've been testing in that iMac.
No.
Take it up to 32. Now you're comfortably in the territory of the 5700 XT.
Yeah.
And that is not a slouch. So if they can get the 32 core GPU organized and get that into an iMac next year, along with one of more CPU cores, then the new iMac next year will be in a position to defeat the current iMac. So if this is true, if these rumors are true, then Apple can replace all of their consumer Intel machines next year.
And that's good for everyone because you either go for your Apple Silicon model, or, as we've established, the iMac with the 48 Vega graphics in it's no slouch, and the prices on those will be, I would imagine, very favourable. End of line ones. So you could pick yourself up something that's still an amazing performer, probably for a lot less than it is now.
Yeah, I think I just need to say that the 2019 iMac is the one with the Vega, but of course the newer one doesn't come with the Vega. That's all now big Navi cards, so you can have it with the 5700 XT.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I think so it comes with the 5000 series. Something else as well that we didn't mention in our video test last week is that it has a T2 chip, the new one, whereas the iMac we're testing didn't.
Right, okay.
So what I suspect is that would improve the performance of the iMac even further with the H.264, H.265 codecs. So the Intel iMac is a beast. If if you need a computer right now for doing heavyweight video editing work, I would definitely go with that. But let's not forget the price difference. You know, the M1 Mini, okay, I mean, it wasn't a million of miles away from that computer in a lot of the tests, and it's a third of the price.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you have to add a keyboard and screen and
I guess
pointing
you do.
device. But yeah, even so.
Actually, that's a really fair point. The 5K screen in the iMac, that, as somebody who's come from using an iMac to another computer, that is the hardest thing to replace. I love my Dell 4K screen, but it's not as good as what you get in the iMac. And I think that makes the iMac a fantastic value computer.
Definitely. So, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. And in terms of these new iMacs that we're hoping to see next year, talk that they're going to follow the design language of the XDR screen.
Yeah, I think that would make sense, especially if they're going to do a half-size Mac Pro.
It's a lovely design language. The iMac, the current iMac look is starting to look a bit dated.
It does. And we haven't yet seen as well a chassis that's specifically designed for Apple Silicon, because understandably, you know, Apple just used the existing chassis for the MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, and the Mac Mini. They've not really, the design hasn't really changed.
No.
So to see something that is properly designed around it, I mean, bear in mind, if you open up the Mac Mini, half of it is empty space in there. It's quite a small board, you know. So I think if they were designing from scratch an Apple Silicon chassis, it's going to be different.
Definitely.
So looking forward to that.
$1 million question.
Go on.
Will the new iMacs come with a stand?
Yeah, of course they will.
You
Yeah.
heard it here first, folks.
How can they not? Yeah. I mean, I understand, you know, we mock Apple for not including the stand. I understand why they didn't include it. This is a professional monitor. Most professional users would have a Visa swivel arm mount for their screen, and those don't cost very much money. So it's a vanity kind of thing. It's not a particularly great stand either. It's got no lateral spinny movement, has it?
No, I think it's very easy to break things on it as well, from what I've heard. So.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, Apple are not ones to shy away from making some extra profit. But sticking with GPU performance, there are rumours that late in 2021 or even pushing into 2022, there's talk of 64 or even 128 GPU cores.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that will redefine, for those who can afford those, that will redefine workflow, won't it?
Well, it basically that would easily compete with the top cards that you can put in the 2019 Mac Pro. And I think if this rumor is true, it kind of is a death knell, isn't it, for AMD graphics cards within Mac computers. And you know, I'm sure that's what Apple want to go for, a completely closed ecosystem. But suppose that your M1 chip came with, I don't know, 32 graphics cores, and then you could drop in, or 64 graphics cores or whatever, and then you could drop in an MPX module, you know, in that Mac Pro chassis with more cores, and just increase the number of cores.
It'll be amazing until Apple decide in 2 years they're going to stop supporting it and go a different direction. But they don't normally do that with hardware or things, do they?
They've got a pretty good track record, especially with the Mac Pro. You know, don't just put something out there and leave it for 7 years or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, eGPU is a really good example of that.
Yeah.
No, wait, it isn't.
The sarcasm. So I mentioned earlier on the channel Jay's 2 cents, he did a response to that NVIDIA email.
Yes.
Something he said in that video, which resonated with me, is that you can like a company's products and you can hate the company.
Yep.
And I think that's how I feel about Apple. I don't like all of their products. I like their Mac lineup.
And those Airpods Maxes, they're gorgeous.
They're amazing, yeah. I'll be rushing out to not buy some.
That's sarcasm there, folks.
Well, I like the iPad. I'm ambivalent about the iPhone. At the end of the day, I'm not that fussed about a phone. If it makes calls, I'm kind of happy. That's just me. Everyone's different. And I like the Mac. I like Mac OS. So I don't like all of their products, but I do like the products that I like. I really like.
Yeah.
And I love my MacBook Pro. I don't care that the M1 is faster. I love my Intel MacBook Pro. It's a great computer.
I think I feel the same at the moment as well.
But Apple as a company, you got Tim Cook speaking to, was it the UN, about the need for climate change and everything else, and yet at the same time they're stopping people from repairing their products, and they just want to chuck everything away or recycle it, I should say. But I find the direction of the company very difficult to agree with, to like. I think their pricing decisions on things like the monitor stand, it doesn't need to be $1,000. I understand not including the stand, but it doesn't need to be $1,000. It's not worth $1,000. It's a joke. Why do they do this to themselves? And the wheels for the Mac Pro, you ever seen those?
No.
So I think they're just they're $400. So it's $100 a corner,
Right.
to put these like really cheap and nasty looking. If you can imagine like a really cheap rim cover on your car to make it look like an alloy wheel, like a chrome alloy, like that. They kind of, from memory, that's what they look like. So you can put these wheels onto your computer, but of course there's no brake on them. So if, like many people, your floor isn't entirely level, your Mac Pro will just
escape.
Yeah, just run out the door.
Hanging on by the cables. They do some strange things, don't they?
I don't understand a lot of their decisions. I really don't.
I understand them. I just don't agree with them.
Yeah. So, I don't know if that's useful content or not. Anyway, what does this mean? What does this mean for the computer landscape if Apple is doing all of this stuff and gets it to market within the next year to 18 months?
It's scary exciting. Like I say, it's going to redefine expectations on how we interact with computers.
We've been saying that the M1 is game changing.
Yeah.
And so because it starts a change, and it has changed the game of what you can expect for your dollar in terms of performance. If Apple pull this off, this is
game ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We're into a new realm of, as I say, how we interact with stuff. It's going to be instant, and it's tying in with greater speeds in terms of connectivity. Our whole experience is going to be seamless and instant. We've seen it in science fiction for a long time, and science fiction often predicts what we go on to see, and actually sometimes is behind.
Still waiting for my flying car, Pete.
They do exist. They do exist. It's just that they only give them out to. No, I was going to go off some crackpot conspiracy theory there, but I lost my train. But you do see it, and interacting with the computer and doing super complicated calculations just like that is something that we've seen in science fiction, whereas we're going to be seeing that in reality.
You're right. It's completely. It will completely change everything, and other manufacturers need to get in on the game on this, and I'm sure they will. NVIDIA's acquired ARM, and I'm sure they'll start working, but they're quite a long way behind. I mean, something that a lot of people don't appreciate is that Apple actually used to own part of ARM.
They did
in the 90s, and so they've been working with ARM for some time. I'm pretty sure they started their hiring of the GPU engineers around 2013.
Yeah.
What we're seeing now is the product of lots of years of hard work, and they've been patient in bringing it to market. So the rest of the teams are behind the curve on this, and there's no reason why AMD, nVidia, Microsoft can't get together and produce something that does the same things and that extracts that same amount of performance. Intel is already starting to make processors with this. They have used the Atom cores as efficiency cores, and then they've got performance cores. So it's coming. For PC owners, don't feel left out. But there is going to be this transition period where, unfortunately, if you're a PC fanboy, you're going to need to
eat some humble pie.
Well,
and I don't mean that in an inflammatory way. Maybe that's not the right term. You're going to have some catching up to do.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky to argue the case for PCs beyond gaming if And this is a big if for PC owners. And bear in mind, I'm a PC owner. I love PCs as
And
well.
I'm also about to embark on building one with one of these new AMD everythings, including the fancy motherboard and that, because why not?
So if this is, you know, it's just oh, you can probably tell I'm struggling to even find words to.
It's an exciting time to be in tech. You know, we're not Apple fanboys. We're not PC fanboys. We're tech fanboys. We just love tech.
Yeah.
Any tech. We want tech. And this is a very exciting time. I don't think it's been as exciting as this, but since you and I were growing up, and you know, you had all these innovations in things, you know, in Spectrum, Amiga, ZX80s before that, Acorns, Archimedes, all that sort of thing. That was a really exciting time, and then we kind of just got into this very predictable linear progression, whereas now we're into this exciting time. Everything's getting mixed up, and it will engender innovation and foster new ideas that I think will be good for everyone.
Yeah, and that is the exciting thing. It's the innovation coming back. It's not just let's throw more horsepower at it, let's throw more cores at it. This is innovating, and you know, creating specialist chips, optimizing for that. The RAM sharing situation between the CPU and GPU, that's obviously a good solution.
Definitely.
And it's something that Apple has a head start on because they control the whole ecosystem. It's going to be hard for the others, but you know, Microsoft is working hard on ARM computers. You know, they've released an updated version of the Surface Pro X with a new Microsoft SQ2 chip in, which they've been working on with Qualcomm, which unfortunately doesn't really offer much more performance and is still considerably slower than the M1. But they're going down the road. You know, they've made a start on the journey, and they're optimizing Windows for ARM as well, which is great news for M1 owners because it means that at some point we'll be able to use Windows on our Mac computers.
Yeah.
In fact, someone's already done it through virtualization. So that's pretty exciting, basically. I'm excited for the future.
Definitely. Me too.
You said about sci-fi predictions. You remember in 2001, A Space Odyssey?
Yes.
The astronauts sat there using what looked like iPads.
Yes, I do.
Go and check that out, folks. That's some prediction, is that?
And if you're looking for a film over the holidays, if you've got some downtime, I'm sure most of you have probably seen 2001, but just watch it again. It is a great film. For a film that was produced in the 60s,
Yeah.
the special effects, absolutely superb. You do have to go, well, apart from the ape suits, but I watched it with my 20-year-old son, and I didn't tell him when it was made until afterwards, and he was astonished, and he went back and watched it again, trying to spot, and he still said this stands up now in terms of its production quality.
It does. It's absolutely incredible. And part of the reason why it stood the test of time, incidentally, is because they use models, large models with, you know, lots of detail. And of course, if you're using CGI, that always gets dated, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. You know, you watch the original Jurassic Park now, and you can see that it's, you know where the CGI is. Yeah. But yeah, like you say, 2001, what a great film. Anyway, this isn't a podcast about movies.
Maybe we should. Constant movery is something we should think about.
So it's been an interesting year. It's been a horrible year.
It has been a pants year in some ways.
In some ways, a lot of people, you know, this has been a life-changing and not in a good way year.
No.
So we'll be glad to see the back of it, I think, and usher in 2021, and hopefully. I
want my money back on 2020. I'll be honest.
It's pretty poor, isn't it? Yeah, I agree. So anyway, this is it for us for this year. So I hope you enjoy your break, whatever you get up to, and
wish you all the very best, and thank you very much for listening to us in 2020, for joining the journey that we've been going on. Subscribers, really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been good. I don't think we're going to hit our 10,000 by the end of the year, but we're very close to it. Yes. Who knows? Certainly next year we'll get to that target. We've got lots of plans for next year, and some quite exciting, but we're not ready to share those with you yet. So we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, hope you have a good break. Stay safe, everybody, and we'll be back in 2021 with the Constant Geekery podcast.
Cheerio.